Greetings, my name is Azizi Jasper, and I'm here with Mr. Jeff Chang, author of Can't Stop, Won't Stop. We are going to get into it. He is our speaker for the Diversity Lecture Series this year at GRCC. So, hip-hop. It started out as a black and brown New York street thing, and it grew to the extent that kids in Japan are b-boying and doing graph art. There are statues of Tupac in Africa. There are choruses being taught on hip-hop. Our former president, George Bush, even said that the most hurtful thing in the past 8 years that he experienced was Kanye saying that he didn't care about black people. My question to you is, what does hip-hop mean as far as race relations in this country, and more specifically, somebody coming from Hawaii? Mm-hmm. How did it pull you in? What was the draw?
Yeah, wow, you started with the big questions, huh?
Definitely.
So I was a little kid growing up in Honolulu, Hawaii, when I first heard Rapper's Delight, and just like every other kid at my school, wanted to learn all the lyrics to it, at that particular point. And as it moved along, there was a whole bunch of hip-hop exploitation movies that kind of came out.
Sure.
As you probably remember, like the early 80s.
Crush the Grooves.
Yeah, Crush Groove, but before that there was like Beat Street and,
right.
and Breakin'. Breakin' was actually big in Hawaii because it was in LA, and some of those dancers that were in Breakin' used to come back and forth between LA and Hawaii. And kind of got the dance scene started up in Honolulu. Definitely. So, and then Wild Style and Style Wars came out. Sure. And those are sort of the holy grail for me and my little crew of folks. But for me, I grew up in Hawaii, majority, minority, whatever that means, you know what I mean? Right. State, the first in the US. And yet the images that you saw on TV were still largely of suburban white kids in California. So to be able to see these kids who were darker skinned, had their own walk, their own talk, their own swagger, their own way of doing things, creating art, their own dances, their own music. Definitely. That was incredibly empowering for me. And I think that was sort of, I couldn't articulate it at that particular point, but I think that was a lot of the attraction of it to me at that particular point. So, sure. It happened, I think, simultaneously for a lot of folks all around the world during those years from like say 79 to like 89. And I think by the time 87, 88, 89 hit, a lot of us were moving into college, and we were hearing things like Eric B. and Rakim and Public Enemy and KRS and MC Lyte and Latifah and a whole bunch of other folks, and that was sort of the soundtrack to our college years and our activism. And so I just kind of grew up with it in that way. Absolutely. And I think that was happening simultaneously in other countries as well, because through the 80s there was more and more of hip hop that was distributed via the media, and you could increasingly find like that rare record store where you could actually get the records and the cassettes, and people would tape it for each other. And right. Style Wars aired one time on the local PBS station, and I just remember a copy of Style Wars going around the island, and just everybody had oh, you have the same copy? Oh yeah, look at it. It kind of blurs out here. Right. Like people fishing with the rabbit ears or whatever. And I'm sounding really old, I know, but you know what I mean? Like that was like, yeah, that was the one cassette that got dubbed and redubbed and sent all around. Right. What's more hip hop than that, though? It's true. It's I mean, it's kind of funny in that sense. It's hard to explain nowadays where, I'm teaching a class now at Stanford, and so we do Spotify playlists, and I give them old, pre-79 mixtapes to listen to, and, it's also easily available. They can just put it up in my Dropbox, they can download it, Definitely. We can have a conversation about it all. Everything's on YouTube. But back then, as you know, you had to really kind of, you had to hunt it down. Sure. You had to be about it. You were really obsessed with trying to get all the details of it right, and trying to understand it in its own sort of terms of authenticity, I think. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I remember what was really big for me was, you know, getting a tape and opening the liner notes.
Yeah.
And seeing, you know, what the artist was talking about, you know, who they were thanking, and if you were lucky, they had the lyrics on them. You know,
Yeah.
you could read the lyrics, and now everything is like you said, Spotify and, you know, YouTube and online. How do you feel that technology and advances in technology, mainly everything being available, you know, at a click of a button, how do you think that that's affected hip hop? Do you think it's brought about a greater appreciation, or do you think it's watered it down?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, obviously, hip hop and technology, that's like a whole sort of discussion, right? Just how technology enabled sort of the recreation of these cultural practices that go literally, you know, back to Africa and then gets dispersed by slavery all throughout the diaspora.
Sure.
And then when, you know, turntables come along, you know, they're able to recreate, you know, these practices of finding these beats that kind of match, you know, different types of things that are happening in different countries simultaneously. So rockers, you know, in Jamaica has resonances with like hip hop at that point, or you could look at samba, or you know, nordestino music in Brazil at the same point, or carnival music in Trinidad or New Orleans, and you could see all these different types of linkages and be like, oh, Mardi Gras Indians, oh, B-boys and B-girls, oh, I get it, you know what I mean? Like, that's part of the really interesting thing about what technology did in that sense, and I think it's kind of, in that way, underrated, you know? We often talk about how sampling technology allowed people to be able to advance the craft, but we don't actually talk about how these crafts like extend back thousands of years, right?
Absolutely.
Before the Middle Passage. So I think that's like really interesting. What I think has happened now is that technology in the last 10 years has been this really disruptive force for the music industry. And in a lot of ways, the music industry hasn't figured out still how to actually work with that.
Absolutely.
In fact, there's kind of a history of the music industry being very conservative with new technologies, you know, going all the way back, right? So that, you know, you could see hip hop getting up in the music industry's face over and over again, you know, from like in the 2000s, you could talk about how they started raiding DJ Drama's pad and trying to squash the mixtape industry.
Sure.
And, you know, and then trying to do 360 deals. And artists kind of figuring out how to build their own audiences via the internet is sort of what's led, I think, to this new wave of artists who are in their 20s. Because, you know, when the book came out in 2005, and I remember I was talking about it for 3, 4, 5 years afterwards, and it would be depressing because you talk about it to students, and students had, young folks had a strong sense of nostalgia for the 90s. Right. Because all the artists actually that were still stars were getting up there. They were in their 30s. Jay-Z was, you know, in his late 30s, heading up to his 40s.
Proclaiming it was a new 20.
Exactly, yeah. And that was sort of a weird kind of thing, whereas in other music genres, you still had fresh, you know, young faces coming in. And that was because the industry, the entire structure that had been set up to develop young artists had been completely wiped out during media consolidation. Right. And so these artists literally had to reformulate their audiences from scratch. And I think it was in the late 2000s that you saw folks like Drake, who are able to do that, Wiz Khalifa, you know, a lot of other folks who are coming up and making those breakthroughs, Nicki Minaj, making those breakthroughs where the industry was just like, oh yeah, we do have to sell hip hop to kids. It is actually a youth culture. Sure. And so, you know, but I think it's really inspiring now to see groups like, say, The Coup or Blue Scholars, you know, up on Kickstarter, you know, doing their own, creating their own sort of self-determination within the industry, building their own sort of financial base. Definitely. And sort of, you know, working through with their audiences how to create the music on their own terms.
Absolutely. Switching gears a little bit from the music side of things to the cultural side of things. the United States government has a history of bamboozling, for lack of a better term, minorities. From Tuskegee experiment to COINTELPRO, the crack epidemic. You know, there have been tangible examples as to why Black and brown people in this country could possibly be hesitant as far as trusting the government is concerned. Many artists feel a sort of ambivalence in participating in the political process because of this. There's a feeling of mistrust. Recently, Lupe came out and under a lot of scrutiny, and this happens to him every election season.
Right.
I remember it last season happened as well. And he said that he doesn't vote, and he spoke out against voting. And Kendrick Lamar, you know, echoed certain sentiments. And I guess my question is, what do you view as the hip-hop generation's role in the political process, past, present, and future? Do you think that it's hip-hop has always been a sort of counterculture sort of thing? Is it not our thing to become a part of the mainstream in politics and embrace that? Or are we third party? You know, what's our take on that?
You know, it's really interesting because around the turn of the millennium, the late 90s, you started seeing this increase in policies that, well, moving from the 80s into the end of the millennium, there was a huge growth in the criminalization of young people, particularly young people of color. And it's evident in terms of the numbers of people who began to be incarcerated. That's when the graph starts to take off like this.
Right.
Largely young folks, largely folks of color, largely urban folks, right? And it was no mistake. I mean, there was literally tough on crime legislation that was pushed through not just by Republicans, but also by Bill Clinton and the Democrats during this era, that was kind of fostering, you know, sort of this, you know, this sort of what we called then the war on youth. It was sort of provoking the fear of young bodies of color, young men of color, young women of color, to get votes, and those laws began to pass. And what you had happening in the late 1990s, going into the new millennium, was students began to and young people began to organize around hip hop. So they called themselves hip hop activists, and so I was privy to see like this massive sort of new generation of folks organizing around this proposition that was called Prop 21 in California, that was literally just about criminalizing all kinds of forms of youth crimes and trying to try young people as adults, trying to make graffiti a third strike, all these different kinds of things. And a whole generation of young people, Van Jones was one of those people, who's now a really amazing progressive activist on the national scene. A whole bunch of people kind of came out of that particular era. And what happened is, as the decade progressed from 2000 to 2008, what you saw was an increased interest in, okay, we got some cultural power via hip hop now, you know? How do we leverage that into getting political power? And so in 2004, there was something called the Hip Hop Political Convention, National Hip Hop Political Convention, organized by a group of activists around the country. Bakari Katwana from Ohio, Rosa Clemente was another person, Ross Baraka from Newark, a whole bunch of folks, really, Baya Adolfo from Newark, a whole bunch of folks nationally, DVD from the Bay Area, came together and formed this National Hip Hop Political Convention. The idea was go back and register young people to vote. And all these organizations kind of got started out of that and alongside it. So you saw Russell Simmons and Diddy like starting up their own sort of political types of efforts, Hip Hop Summit Action Network, Vote or Die. And what you had was between 2004 and 2008, most of the increases, the overwhelming number of increases in the youth vote were among young, black, brown, and yellow kids. You know what I mean? Like, you could look at it and see how the entirety, almost the entirety of the new voting population, there's something like 4.5 million new voters in that era, were of color and mostly urban. And you know, it's not the Republican Party didn't do that, the Democratic Party didn't do that.
Right.
Hip hop kind of did that. And I think what's happening now, and so they, in that sense, they provided the basis of the margin of victory for Barack Obama in 2008. So what I think is happening now in 2012 is you have a lot of folks going back and saying, wow, we did all of this, but what's come of it? You know, and I think that this is where the debate is at this particular point. We're now about a month out from the 2012 election.
Sure.
And there's a huge debate happening amongst 20-year-olds about should we engage or should we not engage? We engaged last time. We really we put it down. And yet, you know, what do we have to show for it?
Right.
And I think that combined with, you know, the skepticism that you had from those who are now in their 30s, right, and their early 40s, that's created quite a really interesting dynamic.
Definitely.
And we're kind of, again, at that turning point where people are going to kind of try to figure out, like, should we engage? How do we engage? The one thing that is for sure is that there's now a number of new elected officials who are in their late 20s and early 30s.
Right.
We've had some that have flamed out, right? We don't have to go into any kind of specific details, but everybody who lives in Michigan knows, right? We've had folks who have kind of flamed out.
Some that still haven't.
Right, and some, yeah, and a lot of folks who are still engaged in the process who, but anyway, you know, my point is at some point we have to figure out how to change things.
Sure.
My work has moved towards like talking about culture, the role of art and culture in changing people's minds, in moving people's hearts, and I think that we need to be able to understand politically what are the different types of strategies that we need to do for our generation to be able to change things.
Sure. I think you touched on something important, and one of my biggest gripes about the hip-hop generation versus, say, the civil rights generation is we are the generation of instant gratification. We're the microwave generation. We wanted Obama to change everything within the first 2 months of office, and you know, we gave him a year, and now we're frustrated. You know, 3 years later, like, this is just ridiculous. I thought I'd be rich by now. You know,
Right.
We live in such an instant gratification society, and to a great extent, hip hop was a catalyst for that because, you know, hip hoppers, we said, okay, you know, my parents might not be able to send me to Juilliard per se, but there is this refrigerator box at the bottom of my stoop, you know, that people can, you know, surround themselves and I can dance on. You know, we might not have been able to afford the best easels and paint, but, you know, there was that abandoned building around the corner, you know, that, you know, we figured out how to do something, how to make the best out of our situation in the moment. And I think that that's the double-edged sword of the hip-hop generation, is that we're very impatient.
Yeah.
We're very impatient with the government, we're impatient with our surroundings. Whereas the hip-hop generation understood, or excuse me, the civil rights generation understood that everything was a process and everything took time. What, I guess I would ask to segue that with the Occupy movement. Russell Simmons was a major supporter of that. Jay-Z recently came out and said that he didn't really understand it. Russell, you know, blasted back and you know, said that you know, this is about the poor people. But at the same time, Russell came out with a rush card. What is hip hop's role as far as the Occupy movement? Is the Occupy movement still relevant? Is that an opportunity for hip hop to, you know, perhaps form a major third party, or is it something that's just a passing fad in your estimation?
You know, I think that it's something that had and continues to have a lot of potential as a local movement. I'm from the Bay Area, and so in the Bay Area it has a different look. The Occupy movement there has a different look, and it's much more aligned with, I think, you know, long-standing racial justice organizations and sort of trends of resistance movements, excuse me, and activism, and union, you know, movement work as well. And so in Oakland, you know, people like Boots Riley from the Crew are prominent. They're prominent spokespeople, and Boots didn't go in saying, you know, I have to like stand for leadership here. He sort of got brought up by the people. He was a people's choice, to use Kool Herc's term.
Right.
And I think has sort of represented it very, very well. In different locales, it looks different, you know, and there's been sort of different efforts in different areas to incorporate on the ground youth movements that have already been existing, and also movements in communities of color, such as anti-foreclosure movements,
right.
such as immigrant rights and migrant justice movements. There's been, I think, a lot of cross-fertilization in some areas, and there hasn't been enough in other areas. Occupy is something, though, that I think stems from the same strengths of hip-hop. You know, I think hip-hop didn't begin as a political movement where we said we have a political agenda. It didn't even begin as a cultural movement where we said we had a cultural manifesto. It began for a way for kids to have fun, right? And it developed that stuff later on. And in that sense, it was about unleashing people's imagination. And I think that the Occupy movement at its core is about saying, let's like get people to sort of break free of these kinds of boxes that have been established around us, and to gather in a space and hash this stuff out and build community, rebuild community from the ground up. And I think that that's essentially hip-hop in a nutshell, you know what I'm saying? So, so I think in that sense, Occupy and hip-hop have a lot to say to each other. And I'm really interested to kind of see how that plays out, whether it goes forward under the Occupy name or not. The other thing to say is now we span the generations, right? So, like we've got on the top end, we've got, you know, Bambaataa and Herc and Flash, who are really, you know, boomers. They're really baby boomers, and they're, you know, in that particular era. And then we've got the folks who, like Chuck, right? Chuck D, who are now, you know, in their 50s, right? We've got parents now. We've got a whole generation of hip hop parents. I got 2 kids myself, and then we have young people now who like still adopt the moniker hip hop, you know, from 12 years old on up to, you know, 29, 30, whatever, on up. So we've got a huge swath of the population now, right? And I think that there's a really interesting discussion to be had amongst this large demographic about how do we make this better? How do we transform this so that it's not just helping us, but it's helping everybody?
Sure.
And I think that that's where Occupy speaks to hip hop, and I think that's where the big question is really for the next 10 years. There's going to be somebody who's now in their 30s, you know, or 40s, who becomes president at some point. Is it going to be a situation where that person is carrying forth the progressive hip-hop agenda that we were pushing back in 2004 around police brutality, healthcare, education, all these different types of things? Or is it going to be somebody who's sort of repping the same old system?
Right.
And we have the opportunity to be able to change that around. So
switching gears back to the music, I always go back and forth with a good friend of mine who's actually the president of the Grand Rapids Hip Hop Coalition, a guy named Vic Williams. He always professes that, you know, hip hop is love, hip hop is positive, hip hop is positivity. You know, I counter with, you know, one of my favorite albums ever is like Infamous by Mobb Deep, you know. And you know, my thing is, you know, I don't feel like you need to necessarily be positive to create hip hop music. I don't feel like all hip hop music is positive. I think it's a mirror of society. But do you feel as though, artistically speaking, hip-hop artists have a social responsibility to project positivity, or do you feel as though the art is sovereign and it can mean whatever it means as art?
I think both. I don't think there's sort of a line between the two. You know, hip-hop has a responsibility. Excuse me. Hip-hop has a responsibility to be dope, right? I mean, that's pretty much it, you know. And I think, you know, I agree with you in the sense that some of the most challenging art is some of the stuff that's maybe the ugliest to us. For me, Ice Cube's Death Certificate was like what Mobb Deep's Infamous was for you. And so like I had to look at this album and be like, wow, what is he talking about? I mean, this is like personally like, like it's personally affecting. It's personally impacting my friends in a very, very deep way. Korean American young people who like sit behind the counter at these shops that their parents run. You know what I mean? When their parents need to get some rest or that kind of thing. And how do I deal with that? And dealing with that was actually a really powerful moment for me. So for me, that's like one of the pieces of art that has most transformed the way it is that I see the world. And I don't think every piece of art needs to come down and transforms people's way of seeing the world. You know? Sometimes you just want to kick back and have fun. And so there's a place and time for that as well. Absolutely.
I liken it to, like the Mona Lisa. I don't think she was an attractive woman, but it's a beautiful painting. So
that's a good way of putting it.
Definitely. One of my biggest criticisms, I would say, of the hip hop generation and its philanthropists is the fact that we don't really make. Let me not say we. I'm not a philanthropist. I'm far from. But our generation of philanthropists has not really made it cool to give. We have the idea, of course, of making it rain. You'll throw your money up in the club. That's cool. But donating to a cause, gets done silently. Speak to hip hop from a philanthropic standpoint, and where what it's done and what it can do, in ways that it needs to be improved.
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I never really thought about it in that sense, but I definitely think you're right about that. There's the sort of the money in the sort of conspicuous consumption type of way, right? Where I mean, it's always been there, right? It's been there from the very beginning of rap music. Rapper's delight, right? Checkbook, credit card, more money than a sucker could ever spend, right? And it's funny, like when you don't have money, or it's kind of cute in that way. And when people really start having money, then it sort of raises a different kind of issue, And then there's everything from, the sort of, well, you should be spending your money this way, to like jealousy, right? The jealousy and the envy that these folks as individuals really have to deal with in a lot of respects. So, so it's a very interesting thing. There's not been a conversation within hip hop about that. And so there's I have this book that I edited called Total Chaos. And there's a person named Raw Goddess, a poet, a playwright and an actress, and an activist, and a philosopher in the most deep kind of sense. And she calls it scarcity consciousness, that if you grow up with so little, you really don't know what to do when you actually get a lot. And that's actually hampering you and destroying you in many types of ways. She has this amazing essay in this book, Total Chaos, about scarcity consciousness. And it really opens up this whole discussion about capitalism, about money, about sustainability in the long run. And so I think your question goes to that in the long run, sustainability. Like, how do we sustain the community? Do we do it for ourselves? Do we constantly go to the big foundations to kind of do that? Do we constantly go to the big sort of Hollywood philanthropists to be able to do different types of stuff? Do we go to government to do that? And it's a very kind of thick and thorny type of question. I think that what makes it difficult, again, are the sort of personal sort of barriers that folks have to face around this. So if you're a wealthy hip-hop philanthropist, you could get besieged by a gazillion different types of organizations that are worthy and unworthy. Some are great and some are not great. And how do you deal with that? You have to tread it lightly. You have to you have to walk kind of very carefully with that, right? and others have set up foundations so they can kind of distance themselves from that. But the foundation's work isn't necessarily a lot of public type of stuff because the same issues kind of come into play, right?
Sure.
So there's a personal stuff there. I mean, the fundamental underlying thing is how do we all kind of think about sustainability in the long run, and how do we bring about that shift within the community as a whole,
right?
So that our understanding of what we need to be able to do things on an individual level and on a community level is sort of transformed from the sort of conspicuous consumption capitalist model that we have.
So one of my favorite MCs of all time is Lauryn Hill. I think she's just absolutely just phenomenal, you know, in and out. And since then, you know, there's been like a real void for me as far as a female presence, a positive female presence in the genre. You have your Nicki, you know, Minaj, and of course, and you have, you know, a couple of others. But since Lauryn, there really hasn't been that positive female presence in the genre. What is the female role in hip hop now? Is there still room for? I mean, there's definitely room for a Lauryn Hill, but why have we not seen something like that since?
Why have we not? I think it has a lot to do, man, with media consolidation, and it's hard to be able to explain this. I think in a sort of really, I've got to figure out a way to do this in an elevator pitch, right? But the way that the media industry changed from the mid-90s to the turn of the millennium has really impacted what you get in terms of content all across the board.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that, you know, if you go back to when hip hop was still kind of coming up, you'd have everybody on tour together: Salt and Pepper, Public Enemy, Ghetto Boys, Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, and Public Enemy all on the same bill. You know what I mean? And Ice-T, and they were right, like all on the same bill. And then hip hop becomes more and more of a rationalized industry. It peaks in 2000, and folks have figured out that, hey, there's a couple of different types of modes. Let's call them stereotypes, just to be precise. You know, around the black male, around the black female, that we can fulfill, that will sell, and let's work the heck out of those. And so the range of representations narrows at that particular point. Right. And it's because these are the stereotypes that can sell not just records, but they can sell, you know, movies, video games, vitamin water, all kinds of stuff, right?
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly, the whole thing. You know, it becomes sort of this whole basket of goods that's getting sold, not just the music. And so within that, you know, that's how you have to kind of understand what Nicki Minaj is working against. She's pushing the boundaries within the kind of box that she's been like walked into, right? And I think that what we need to be able to do as audiences, as people who support, you know, rap music, is to be able to say, these are the folks that we're really looking for, you know, to be able to raise up. There's no shortage of amazing female artists out there. Invincible in Detroit.
Absolutely.
So, you know, like
Jean Grey.
Like we could go on and on, right? There's no shortage of MCs. There's a shortage of attention from the music industry to be able to take these folks to kind of the next level.
And quickly, how as a consumer do you support the people that you support? How do you support them?
I mean,
what's the best way to do that?
you support the artist directly. You go to their show.
Right.
You know, if they've got something on Bandcamp, like you maybe download a couple songs, but you go and give them the 5 bones that they need to keep on going. You know, if they've got a Kickstarter thing, you put down your 20 for a T-shirt and a download. You know what I mean? Like, support folks. I mean, we have to be able to build our own sustainability, and that means that, you know, like back in the day when everything was on vinyl, we couldn't bootleg it in that sense, right? You saved up whatever, you know, for the weekend where you could go and splurge on a couple of 12-inch singles or an album.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when they came to town, like, you saved up all your money so you could go and see the show. Same type of thing. I mean, it's not any different than it's ever been. And I think that's the way that we create spaces for these artists that we want to be able to thrive. We do that.
Right.
Nobody else is going to do that for us.
Well, this has been Azizi Jasper with Mr. Jeff Chang, and this has been a presentation for the GRCC Diversity Lecture Series. Thank you.